Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an ancient text that's going to absolutely flip how you view your everyday life, your struggles, and literally the very fabric of reality. I want you to picture a cinematic, 3D visualization of your own mind, like this vast, sprawling universe of glowing stars and galaxies. We're about to take an incredible journey from the absolute depths of human suffering all the way to ultimate philosophical liberation. It's going to be a wild ride, so let's get into it. So here's a question for you. What if everything you're seeing right now is just a dream? Yeah, I know, it totally sounds like a cliche line from some sci-fi movie, right? But honestly, it's the radical foundational premise of the source material we're looking at today. Imagine the solid world around you, your room, your desk, just slowly dissolving into floating 3D particles. The idea that our reality is an illusion is super ancient. But as you'll see, it hits incredibly close to home with the daily stresses we all deal with today.
We're drawing all our insights today from an absolute masterpiece of Indian philosophy called Vasishtha's Yoga. This massive, timeless text is basically a deep dialogue between a young, super stressed out Lord Rama and the enlightened sage Vasishtha. We're using the version translated into accessible, everyday English by Swami Venkateshananda. Now, the text itself mentions that this path is designed for the spiritually evolved. But don't worry, we're going to break down its most powerful, practical insights so absolutely anyone can use them.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First up, we'll look at a crisis of meaning. Second, how self-effort overcomes fate. Third, the big one, the world is consciousness. Fourth, we'll unpack the mind's illusions. And finally, number 5, we'll bring it all home with liberation in everyday life. Okay, let's jump right into part 1, a crisis of meaning. To really grasp this crisis, we have to look at Lord Rama. Now, despite being a privileged prince, he is dealing with some deeply relatable burnout. He's just totally hopeless about the daily grind. He asks the sage, quote, "The lifespan is like that of a water droplet on a leaf. I am puzzled, holy sir, that a man roams here and there, seemingly busy throughout the day. And though he does not do one meaningful thing, he does not find this ridiculous." End quote. I want you to picture a stunning, close-up 3D visual of a trembling water droplet on a green leaf, reflecting the busy, stressful blur of a modern city. Rama is having a full-blown existential crisis that perfectly mirrors our modern hustle culture. He sees people just running on this endless hamster wheel and basically asks, wait, what's the actual point of all this? Which leads us beautifully to section 2, self-effort overcomes fate. So, when Rama expresses all this terrible helplessness, sage Vasishtha steps in with a truly radical first lesson. He completely dismantles the idea that we're just helpless victims of destiny. Vasishtha states that fate, or divine dispensation, is totally a fictitious concept. It's just a made-up convention. In reality, what we call fate is simply the self-effort of a past incarnation. He argues that literally no one has ever actually seen fate. When people complain about destiny ruining their plans, they're really just bumping into the momentum of their own past actions. And here's the best part. Because it's just past action, it can be entirely overridden by intense, right-minded action in the present moment. Vasishtha draws a really sharp, no-nonsense contrast between passive fatalism and righteous self-effort. He's super direct here, saying that a lazy man who just yields to fate is, quote, worse than a donkey. Ouch, right? Imagine a 3D split screen. On one side, someone sitting in a dark, passive room giving up, and on the other, someone dynamically climbing a bright, sunlit staircase. If you engage in righteous self-effort, literally grinding your teeth to overcome those old, heavy past habits with intense action today, you can achieve absolutely anything. You are entirely in the driver's seat. All right, moving on to section 3, the world is consciousness. Now that we know we're empowered to act, we have to understand the actual playing field we're on. And Vasishtha's core revelation is a massive paradigm shift. He says, everything is consciousness, including the material world. The world is exactly as you see it. Picture this, a vast, dark, 3D void where a vibrant, realistic landscape of mountains and rushing rivers is literally painting itself into existence right before your eyes. Vasishtha explains that infinite consciousness is the only true reality out there. This physical world we live in, it's merely a vibration, a reflection inside that vast consciousness. It feels incredibly solid to us, sure, but its fundamental building block isn't matter. It's pure awareness. That brings us to section 4, the mind's illusions. So, you're probably wondering, if the world is just consciousness, why on earth does it feel so heavy and so solid? Well, Vasishtha uses some really beautiful everyday analogies to clear this up. He says, quote, "This world appearance is a confusion. even as the blueness of the sky is an optical illusion. I think it is better not to let the mind dwell on it, but to ignore it. Just think about that for a second. Outer space doesn't actually have a color, right? That vast, beautiful blue sky we look up at is just a limitation of our human eyes interacting with light. It's an optical illusion. This brilliant analogy shows how our senses constantly trick us into seeing a solid, stressful world that isn't fundamentally there. He illustrates this even further by comparing two really striking metaphors: the mirage in the desert versus a barren woman's son. Vasishtha explains that a barren woman's son is a logical impossibility. It just flat out does not exist. But a mirage in the desert, that appears to exist simply because your mind is misinterpreting the sand and the heat waves. Vasishtha says the physical world is exactly like that mirage. It's not just a total blank nothingness, but it is an illusion that your mind is constantly conjuring up out of that infinite consciousness we talked about. And this brings us all the way back to our very first question. Vasishtha says, quote, "This world appearance is but a long dream. This dream-like appearance is yet true during the period of the dream itself. Think about your own experiences when you're sleeping. When you're deep in a dream, the fire burns you, the water feels wet, and the fear you feel is 100% real. It is a complete universe built entirely by your mind, and it is undeniably true for you, right up until the exact second you open your eyes and wake up. Our waking life, according to Vasishtha, operates on that exact same psychological mechanism." Finally, let's look at Section 5, Liberation in Everyday Life. Okay, so if the world is a dream, how do we actually reach this awakened state without, abandoning all our daily responsibilities? Because obviously we can't all just run away to live in a forest. Vasishtha gives us a really practical, progressive path. Step 1 is study and the company of holy ones. Basically, educating yourself and hanging out with wise, grounded people. Step 2 is inquiry, which means deep self-reflection, constantly asking yourself, who am I? And step 3 is non-attachment, achieving true psychological freedom. Imagine a 3D visual of stepping up out of a dark, confusing maze and walking out into a bright, peaceful, wide-open landscape. That's what this is. Liberation isn't magic. It's an active, step-by-step, psychological unburdening. The practical reality of this is perfectly captured in this quote. "He who treads the superior path, though he dwells in this body which functions as the potter's wheel does by past momentum, is not bound by actions." This is just a fantastic analogy. Think about a potter making clay pots. Even when the potter takes his foot off the pedal, that wheel keeps on spinning for a while just from past momentum, right? True liberation isn't about retreating from life. It's about doing your duty in society, but doing it without all that stressful attachment. You let the wheel of life spin, you play your part, but you do it knowing it's all just a play of consciousness. So I'll leave you with this. If the world is a stage projected by your own consciousness, what role will you choose to play today? Vasishtha's yoga teaches us that we are absolutely not victims of a cruel fate or a meaningless daily grind. We are the very consciousness that projects the entire show. As you go back to your day, just remember that you have the ultimate power to write your own script through your present self-effort. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today. Stay curious, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next one.